The massive ships appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning. They came without warning, breaking through the clouds like dark mountains floating in the sky. Earth's satellites picked them up only moments before they entered the atmosphere, their strange technology making them almost invisible until it was too late. Commander James Gray stood at the window of Earth's United Defense Force headquarters, his coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips. The ships were beautiful in a terrifying way, their hulls gleaming with a purple-black metal that seemed to eat the sunlight. He counted 12 of them, each bigger than the largest aircraft carrier ever built. "Sir," a young officer burst into his office, nearly tripping over his own feet. "We're getting a transmission from the lid ship." Gray put down his coffee and straightened his uniform, put it through to the main screen. The wall-sized display flickered to life, showing what could only be described as a nightmare in military uniform. The alien commander stood at least 8 feet tall, with gray-scaled skin and 4 yellow eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. When it spoke, its voice rumbled like distant thunder. "People of Earth," the alien said, each word precise and cold. "I am Admiral Krell of the Dominion Fleet. Your planet has been chosen for integration into our empire. Resist, and we will unleash our beasts." Commander Gray kept his face neutral, though his heart was racing. "This is Commander Gray of Earth's United Defense Force. We request time to discuss your offer with our world leaders." Admiral Krell's upper eyes blinked slowly. "You have 1 Earth hour. When I return, you will witness the power of our beasts. Then you will understand the futility of resistance." The screen went dark, leaving Gray alone with his thoughts and the trembling young officer. "Sir," the officer asked, "what are we going to do?" Gray pressed a button on his desk. "Call an emergency meeting. All top military leaders, all countries. We have less than an hour to figure this out." Within 30 minutes, the underground conference room was packed. Military leaders from every major nation sat around the massive circular table, their faces lit by the harsh fluorescent lights. Screens on the walls showed more officers who couldn't make it in person. "Their ships have weapons we've never seen before," General Thompson reported, pointing to rapidly captured satellite images. "Energy readings are off the charts. And these beasts they mentioned, we're picking up life signs inside those ships that make no sense. Whatever they are, they're big. We can't fight them," someone said. "Not with our current technology." "Maybe we don't have to." A quiet voice spoke up from the back of the room. All heads turned to look at Captain Tom Miller, a specialist in unusual warfare tactics. He was known for thinking outside the box, sometimes so far outside that people questioned his sanity. "What do you mean?" Gray asked. Miller smiled, the kind of smile that suggested he knew something nobody else did. "They want to show us their beasts. Fine, let's show them ours too. But not what they're expecting." "Explain," Gray demanded. "Sir, remember Project Companion? The one everyone laughed at when I proposed it 3 years ago." Gray's eyes widened. "You don't mean—" "Yes, sir. They want to see a beast. Let's show them what thousands of years of selective breeding and training can do. Let's show them humanity's best friend." The room erupted in confused murmurs, but Gray was already nodding. Sometimes the craziest plans were the only ones that worked. And right now, with humanity's freedom hanging by a thread, crazy might be exactly what they needed. As if to punctuate the moment, one of the alien ships moved closer to the city, its shadow falling across the building like an eclipse. Time was running out, and Earth's fate might just rest in the paws of their most unexpected defender. Commander Gray stood up, his decision made. "Captain Miller, get your team ready. If we're going to face their beasts, we might as well show them what a real Earth beast can do." The aliens wanted to see monsters. Instead, they were about to meet something far more powerful: unconditional love with a wagging tail. Captain Miller walked down the clean white hallway of the military facility, followed by Admiral Krell and 2 of his massive alien guards. Their heavy footsteps echoed off the walls, making the whole building seem to shake. The alien commander had to duck to avoid hitting his head on the ceiling lights. "Your surrender is wise," Admiral Krell rumbled, his 4 yellow eyes glowing with satisfaction. "Now show us your weapons so we may properly dispose of them." Miller kept his face serious, though inside he was trying not to smile. "Of course, Admiral. We're heading to our most secure facility now. It's where we keep our most powerful asset." They passed through 3 security checkpoints, each requiring Miller's handprint and eye scan. The aliens grew more interested with each layer of security, probably thinking they were about to see some amazing human technology. "I must warn you," Miller said as they approached the final door. "What you're about to see might surprise you." Admiral Krell made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We have conquered 12 galaxies, human. Nothing surprises us anymore." The heavy steel doors slid open with a soft hiss. Inside was a room that looked nothing like a weapons facility. The walls were painted in soft blue colors. There were comfortable chairs scattered around, and in the center of the room was what looked like a fancy dog bed. Sleeping on the bed was a golden retriever. The dog opened one eye, saw the visitors, and immediately jumped up, tail wagging so hard its whole body shook with happiness. It was wearing a special vest with patches that read Space Force and HFY dog on the sides. "This," Miller said proudly, "is Max." Admiral Krell stared at the dog, then at Miller, then back at the dog. All 4 of his eyes blinked in sequence. "Is this some kind of joke?" "Not at all," Miller replied, kneeling down to scratch behind Max's ears. The dog responded by trying to lick his face. "Max here is the result of over 15,000 years of careful breeding and partnership with humanity. He's a good boy, aren't you, Max?" Max barked happily, then did something that made the alien guards step back in alarm. He walked right up to them, sat down, and offered his paw. What is it doing?" one of the guards asked, sounding nervous despite being 3 times the dog's size. "He wants to shake hands," Miller explained. "It's how dogs make friends." Admiral Krell's face turned a darker shade of gray, which Miller guessed was anger. "You waste our time with a pet. When we spoke of beasts, we meant real weapons of war." As if on cue, a holographic screen appeared on one wall, showing a massive creature in a containment cell aboard one of the alien ships. It was 15 feet tall, covered in armor-like scales, with claws that could tear through steel. The beast roared, showing rows of teeth like daggers. "That," Admiral Krell said with pride, "is a real beast, a perfect killing machine, bred for war." Miller nodded thoughtfully, still petting Max. "Impressive. But you know what your beast can't do. It can't tell when a soldier is sad. It can't comfort someone who's homesick in deep space. It can't make friends with children, or help blind people cross the street, or find survivors in collapsed buildings. Those things are weaknesses," Krell shouted. "Are they?" Miller asked quietly. "Max here has helped train every member of our Space Force. He's been on more rescue missions than I can count. When our astronauts get lonely on long missions, dogs like Max keep them sane and happy. Your beasts might be good at destroying things, but ours are good at saving people." Max wagged his tail harder, as if agreeing. Admiral Krell looked confused for the first time since arriving on Earth. You put this creature in space." "Of course," Miller said. "We made special suits for them and everything. Would you like to see Max in action? We have a training arena where he demonstrates his skills." The alien commander's upper eyes narrowed while his lower ones widened, an expression Miller couldn't quite read. After a long moment, Krell nodded. "Show me what this Max can do. Though I warn you, if this is truly your best weapon, your planet's fate is sealed." Miller smiled. "Just wait and see, Admiral. Just wait and see." The training arena was a large circular room with high ceilings and reinforced walls. Viewing screens lined the upper section, showing different angles of the space below. A small crowd had gathered in the observation area, both human military personnel and more of Admiral Krell's alien warriors. Max trotted happily into the arena, his nails clicking on the metal floor. He still wore his Space Force vest, and now also had small protective boots on his paws. The dog looked tiny in the massive space, especially when compared to the aliens watching from above. Admiral Krell's laugh echoed through the chamber. This is truly pathetic. Allow me to show you what a real beast looks like. He pressed something on his wrist device, and a large door on the opposite side of the arena began to open. The thing that emerged made several human observers gasp. It was even more terrifying in person than it had been on the hologram. The beast stood nearly as tall as the three-story room, its scaled body rippling with muscles. Its claws left scratches in the metal floor with each step, and its eyes glowed with an unnatural red light. "Behold," Krell announced proudly, "the product of centuries of genetic engineering. Our beasts feel no fear, no pain, no mercy. They live only to fight and conquer." Miller watched calmly from his position near the arena's entrance. "Impressive. But I notice you had to engineer that. We just had to be friends with dogs, and they chose to help us." "Help you?" Krell scoffed. "That tiny creature can't even reach my beast's knee." Max, meanwhile, seemed completely unfazed by the monster towering over him. He sat down, head tilted to one side, and gave a friendly woof. His tail swept back and forth across the floor in a steady rhythm. The beast paused, clearly confused by this reaction. It was used to enemies either attacking or running away in terror. This small furry thing doing neither didn't fit into its programming. "Attack," Krell commanded, his voice sharp with frustration. The beast took a menacing step forward, raising one massive clawed hand. Max responded by lying down and rolling onto his back, exposing his belly, a universal dog signal for friendliness. What is it doing?" one of the alien warriors asked. "He's saying hello," Miller explained. "You see, dogs understand something your beasts don't. Not everything has to be a fight. Max here has been trained to recognize signs of stress and aggression, and to help calm them." As if to demonstrate, Max rolled back over and slowly approached the beast, his body language completely relaxed. He sat down again, closer this time, and offered his paw just as he had done with the guards earlier. The beast froze. Its programming told it to attack, to destroy, to conquer. But something about this small creature's complete lack of fear or hostility was making it hesitate. It lowered its raised claw, just slightly. "What are you waiting for?" Krell shouted. "Destroy it." But the beast didn't move. Instead, it made a low rumbling sound, not quite a growl, but more like a confused whine. It had never encountered anything that didn't either fight back or flee. This was different. Miller smiled. "You know what's interesting about dogs? They can read emotions better than any other animal on Earth. They know when someone is angry, or scared, or lonely. Even your beast, artificial as it is giving off signals that Max can read." "This is ridiculous." Krell slammed his fist against the observation window. "Our beasts are the most fearsome weapons in 12 galaxies." "Maybe that's the problem," Miller said softly. "You made weapons. We made friends." He turned to the alien commander. "Did you know that dogs have been to space with us since our very first missions? They were there when we were just learning to leave our planet. Not as weapons, but as companions. They helped us be brave when we faced the unknown." Max barked again, and this time something extraordinary happened. The beast, programmed only for destruction, slowly, uncertainly, sat down. The observation room went completely silent. "Impossible," Krell whispered. But Miller just nodded. "No, Admiral, this is just what dogs do. They make friends with everyone they meet, even your perfect healing machine." Admiral Krell paced back and forth in the observation room, his clawed feet making sharp clicking sounds against the floor. His 4 eyes hadn't blinked in several minutes as he watched the impossible scene below. His mighty beast, a creature that had helped conquer entire worlds, was sitting quietly in front of a dog. "This must be some kind of trick," he growled. "Some human technology we haven't detected." Miller shook his head. "No tricks, Admiral. Just 15,000 years of friendship between humans and dogs. Would you like to see what else Max can do?" The alien commander's eyes narrowed. "Yes. Let us see if your friend can handle a real challenge." He pressed several buttons on his wrist device, and the beast's eyes began glowing brighter red. "I am activating its combat protocols. Now we will see what your dog does against true aggression." The beast rose to its full height, its body tensing as battle programming took over. It let out a roar that shook dust from the ceiling. Several human observers covered their ears, but Max didn't even flinch. Instead, the golden retriever did something completely unexpected. He brought one of his toys from the corner of the arena. It was a large red ball, well worn from many games of fetch. The beast paused mid-roar, staring at the ball now sitting at its feet. "What is this?" Krell demanded. "That's Max's favorite toy," Miller explained. "He wants to play." "Play." The word seemed to confuse the alien commander. "In the middle of combat." "That's the thing about dogs," Miller said, watching as Max wagged his tail expectantly. "They can turn almost any situation into a game. They're excellent at diffusing tension. It's one reason they're so good at therapy work." The beast reached down with one massive claw and carefully picked up the ball. The toy looked tiny in its grip, like a marble in a human's hand. Max's tail wagged faster. "This is not what beasts are for," Krell shouted. "They are weapons of war. They do not play with balls." But even as he spoke, his beast was examining the toy with what could only be described as curiosity. Max gave an encouraging bark, and to everyone's amazement, the beast rolled the ball back to him. "Sir," one of Krell's warriors spoke up, "the other beasts in the holding cells. They're acting strangely." Krell rushed to another screen showing the interior of his ship. The other beasts, watching the events through their shared neural network, were all sitting quietly in their cells. Some were making soft whining sounds, like puppies wanting attention. "What have you done?" Krell turned to Miller, his voice a mix of anger and fear. "We haven't done anything," Miller replied calmly. "This is all Max. You see, dogs have an amazing ability. They can sense goodness, even in creatures designed to be nothing but weapons. And once they find that goodness, they encourage it." In the arena below, Max had gotten the beast to play a proper game of fetch. The enormous creature was now carefully throwing the ball, making sure not to use too much strength. Each time Max brought it back, the beast's movements became more gentle, more controlled. "Your beasts might have been created for war," Miller continued, "but that doesn't mean that's all they can be. Max is showing them another way." One of the human scientists stepped forward with a tablet. "Sir, you should see this. The beast's neural patterns are changing. The aggression centers are becoming less active, while areas associated with social bonding are lighting up." Krell stared at the data, then at the scene below. His mighty beast, the pride of the Dominion's military, was now sitting cross-legged on the floor, while Max showed it how to give a proper handshake. "This," Krell's voice was barely a whisper, "this changes everything." Miller nodded. "That's another thing about dogs, Admiral. They have a way of changing everyone they meet, even beasts, it seems." The alien commander watched silently as his perfect weapon of war learned to play fetch, and for the first time in his long military career, Admiral Krell began to wonder if perhaps the Dominion had been wrong about what made a creature truly powerful. The next few hours in the military facility were unlike anything anyone had expected. Word had spread throughout both the human base and the alien fleet about what was happening in the training arena. More observers kept arriving, pressing against the observation windows to watch the extraordinary scene below. The beast, once a terrifying weapon of war, was now lying on its side while Max showed it how to roll over. The massive creature's attempts to copy the dog's movements were almost comical, but there was something touching about how carefully it tried. "I don't understand," Admiral Krell said, breaking a long silence. "Our scientists spent centuries removing all emotions from the beasts. They should not be capable of this." He gestured at the scene below, where his mighty warrior was now learning to sit on command. Miller nodded toward a group of human scientists who were reviewing data on their tablets. "Dr. Reed, would you like to explain what you're seeing?" A woman in a white lab coat stepped forward. "Of course. You see, Admiral, dogs have a special ability that we've only recently begun to understand. They can produce something called the love hormone, oxytocin, just by making eye contact. When they bond with someone, they trigger the same response in them. Even in our beasts," one of the alien warriors asked, sounding surprised. "Especially in your beasts," Dr. Reed replied. "Our scans show they're actually more sensitive to it than humans are, probably because they've never experienced anything like it before." Below in the arena, Max had started a new game. He would touch his nose to different colored circles on the floor, demonstrating what looked like a simple training exercise. The beast watched intently, then began copying him, carefully touching each circle in turn. "This is more than just play," Miller explained. "Max is a therapy dog trained to work with space crews on long missions. He knows how to teach emotional regulation through simple games. Look at how much calmer the beast is now." He was right. The creature's movements had become smooth and controlled, very different from its earlier aggressive stance. Its glowing red eyes had dimmed to a softer color, almost pink. "But why?" Krell asked, his voice unusually quiet. "Why would you spend time teaching a dog to do these things when you could have made it into a weapon?" An older human officer who had been quietly watching spoke up. "Admiral, let me tell you a story. 20 years ago, I was trapped in a collapsed building after an earthquake. I was alone in the dark for hours, running out of air, thinking I was going to die. You know what saved me? A search and rescue dog. Not because it was big or strong, but because it cared enough to keep looking until it found me." He pointed at Max. "That's what dogs do. They help us. Not because they're forced to, but because they want to. We didn't make them into weapons because they showed us something better, the power of being kind." As if to prove the point, Max had finished his training demonstration and was now giving the beast a proper belly rub, something that looked absolutely ridiculous given their size difference. But the beast seemed to be enjoying it immensely. Suddenly, alarms started blaring from Krell's wrist device. "Sir," one of his officers called out, "the beasts in all our ships, they're changing. The neural programming, it's being rewritten." The screens showing the other beasts revealed similar scenes across the fleet. The mighty warriors were sitting quietly in their cells, some making soft whining sounds, others attempting to copy Max's playful behaviors they had witnessed through their shared connection. "It's spreading through their neural network," Dr. Reed said, examining the data. "The emotional responses Max triggered in this beast are being shared with all of them. They're learning to be gentle." Admiral Krell watched as his army of perfect warriors transformed into something entirely different. His voice was barely a whisper when he spoke. "All this time, we thought making them unable to feel would make them stronger. But this small creature, with nothing but friendship." Miller placed a hand on the alien commander's shoulder. "Sometimes the strongest things in the universe aren't the ones that can destroy. Sometimes they're the ones that can love." The atmosphere in the Dominion's flagship had changed completely. Admiral Krell, Captain Miller, and a small group of both human and alien officials walked through rows of holding cells. But the scene was nothing like what anyone would have expected just hours ago. Where there had once been raging monsters, now there were curious, gentle giants. Each beast sat calmly in its cell, watching Max as he trotted past with his tail wagging. The golden retriever stopped at each cell, offering a friendly bark to its occupant. "They're like completely different creatures," one of the alien scientists said, checking readings on a strange device. "The aggressive programming is still there, but it's dormant, overridden by new neural patterns." Miller watched as Max sat down in front of one of the cells, placing his paw against the energy barrier. The beast inside mimicked him, placing its massive clawed hand in the same spot. Despite the size difference, the gesture was remarkably similar. "Your beasts weren't born violent, were they?" Miller asked quietly. "They were made that way." Admiral Krell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought. "No, they were peaceful once, before we changed them." He turned to face Miller. "Our scientists said emotions made them weak, that programming them only for combat would make them perfect weapons. But look at them now," Miller said, gesturing to where Max was teaching another beast to play with a rubber ball that one of the human officers had brought. "They're choosing to be gentle. That takes more strength than being violent." A message came through on Krell's communication device. His expression changed as he read it. "The other ships, they're reporting the same changes in their beasts. Through their shared neural network, they're all learning from this one dog." As they watched, something unprecedented happened. One of the human scientists, after checking several readings, suggested they try opening one of the cells. Admiral Krell hesitated but finally agreed. The energy barrier disappeared with a soft hum. The beast inside, instead of charging out, carefully stepped forward and sat down cross-legged on the floor. Max immediately trotted over and climbed into its lap, making himself comfortable as if this was the most natural thing in the world. "I've never seen anything like this," the alien scientist said, his voice full of wonder. "The oxytocin levels in the beasts are higher than we thought possible. They're developing actual emotional bonds." More cells were opened, and each beast showed the same gentle behavior. They gathered around Max, following his lead in simple games and exercises. Some even started showing distinct personalities. One was particularly playful, another seemed more shy, a third appeared to take on a protective role over the others. "Do you know why dogs were the first animals humans domesticated?" Miller asked, watching the scene. "It wasn't because we forced them. It was because they chose to be our friends. They saw something in us worth connecting with, just like Max saw something in your beasts worth bringing out." Admiral Krell watched as his fearsome army of warriors learned to play fetch. "Our entire military strategy, our whole empire, it was built around the beasts, without them as weapons." "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," Miller suggested. "Look at how much happier they are now. And happy beasts might be more valuable than angry ones." As if to prove his point, one of the beasts had figured out how to be gentle enough to pet Max, and the dog's obvious enjoyment of the attention had prompted others to want to learn the skill as well. The sight of these enormous creatures delicately trying to give belly rubs was both amusing and touching. "The Dominion Council will never believe this," Krell muttered, but there was a new tone in his voice, something almost like hope. "Then maybe," Miller said, "it's time for the Dominion to learn what humanity figured out thousands of years ago. That sometimes the strongest bonds aren't built through fear or force, but through friendship and trust." Max barked happily, as if agreeing, and the sound was echoed by a chorus of gentle rumbles from the beasts. No longer weapons of war, but students learning the art of peace from a very special teacher. 1 month after the day the Dominion fleet arrived at Earth, the scene at the United Defense Force headquarters was very different from what anyone could have imagined. The large conference room, once filled with tension and fear, now buzzed with excited conversation as humans and aliens worked together. Where battle plans had once been spread across tables, there were now designs for beast-sized play areas and training facilities. Dog trainers from around the world had been brought in to help develop programs for working with the reformed beasts. Max sat in his special chair near the head of the table, wearing a new vest that read CHIF Training Officer across it. He watched with content eyes as Admiral Krell gave his report to the combined Earth-Dominion Council. "The transformation has been complete," Krell announced, his voice carrying none of its former menace. "All beasts across our 12 galaxies have been affected through their neural network. The change appears to be permanent and voluntary. They choose to remain gentle." On the large screens around the room, images showed scenes from various Dominion worlds. Beasts that had once terrorized populations were now helping to rebuild cities they had damaged. Their great strength, once used for destruction, was being used to lift heavy materials and clear rubble. "The most remarkable thing," Dr. Reed added, standing to share her research, "is how the beasts are developing individual personalities. They're not just copying Max anymore. They're learning to be themselves. Some have even started showing specific talents." She played a video showing beasts in different situations. One was particularly good at finding people in collapsed buildings, using its enhanced senses for rescue work. Another had developed a talent for working with alien children, showing incredible patience and gentleness despite its massive size. "But what about the Dominion's military?" one of the alien counselors asked. "Our entire strategy was based on the beasts as weapons." Miller stepped forward, Max trotting alongside him. "Maybe it's time for a new strategy. Earth has something called soft power, influence through cooperation and friendship rather than force. Your beasts could be the greatest peacekeepers the galaxy has ever seen." "Peacekeepers?" several aliens asked at once. "Think about it," Miller continued. "Who would dare start a war when the peacekeeping force includes 15-foot-tall empaths who can literally sense hostile intentions? The beasts could prevent conflicts before they even begin." Admiral Krell nodded slowly. "They already are. 3 potential uprisings in the outer systems were peacefully resolved last week. The beasts simply made friends with both sides." The room filled with cheerful murmurs as more reports came in from across the galaxies. The Dominion's fearsome reputation was being replaced by something new. They were becoming known as diplomats and peacekeepers. "There's one more thing," Miller said, pulling up a new image on the main screen. It showed Max in a specially designed spacesuit, complete with boots and a helmet with ears. "We've started training dogs for deep space missions with the beasts. Turns out they work even better together in space than they do on the ground." The image changed to show a beast and a dog working together on what looked like a space station, the odd pair perfectly coordinated as they helped repair damage to the hull. Admiral Krell looked down at Max, who wagged his tail happily. "When we came to Earth, we thought we were the most powerful force in the galaxy because we had the strongest weapons." He knelt down, offering his hand to Max, who placed his paw in it. "We never imagined that our weapons would be transformed by something as simple as friendship." "That's the thing about dogs," Miller said, smiling. "They don't see weapons or warriors or even aliens. They just see friends they haven't met yet." As if to demonstrate, Max stood up and barked once. Immediately, every beast watching through the video feeds sat down and barked back, a sound that echoed across 12 galaxies. Commander Gray, watching from the back of the room, couldn't help but laugh. "You know," he said to no one in particular, "when they said they were going to unleash the beast, I don't think this is what they had in mind." And so it was that the great Dominion fleet, which had arrived ready for war, instead became part of the largest friendship initiative in galactic history. Their mighty beasts, once the most feared warriors in space, became known as the gentlest souls in the universe, all thanks to a golden retriever who believed that everyone, no matter how fierce they seemed, just needed a friend.